Hello and welcome to my channel for news about reports for USA. Please follow and subscribe for more information. Let's begin. Hallmark's fall into love programming continues with The Heiress and the Handyman. This stars Jodie Sweetin and Sevier. A case of mistaken identity leads to romance. Here are all the details of this new rom-com. What is Hallmark's The Heiress and the Handyman about? Jodie Sweetin and Sevier are an unexpected match in The Heiress and the Handyman. Here is the synopsis of this new Hallmark rom-com. June Waltshire is a wealthy heiress with no troubles in the world. She doesn't even have a boyfriend to have to dote over. However, while taking a break at one of her family-owned 6-star hotels in Greece, she finds she is broke. That is because her fortune was wiped out by a cryptocurrency crisis. That means she has to live without some of the luxe perks she is accustomed to. That includes designer bags, fancy cars, yachts, houses, fancy hotels, or limitless credit cards. Subsequently, June's fortunes change when she returns home to New York. She finds a safe deposit box. Inside is a deed to a country home. This is her best opportunity for a fresh start. Moreover, this may give her the skills she needs to live independently. This country home is terrific, as is her neighbor Bart Hudson. But, June doesn't know better and thinks he is the handyman. Once Bart finally explains who he is, she feels foolish. Yet, he feels bad for her in this predicament. Therefore, Bart takes her around town and spends a lot of time with June. They get close and Bart really likes June, despite her lack of basic life skills. She is kind and charming. Bart and June band together to reclaim her family's fall fair legacy, taking on apple pies and the livestock parade. As they prepare for state fair domination, they learn a lot about each other's lives. When real feelings develop, June must decide where her heart truly lies. When is the premiere of The Heiress and the Handyman? The premiere of the fall into love movie The Heiress and the Handyman is on Saturday, September 14th, at 8 p.m. Eastern, on the Hallmark Channel. Those rom-com fans who subscribe to Peacock can also watch this new Jodie Sweetin and Sevier movie on the streamer up to 72 hours after the premiere. In addition, The Heiress and the Handyman is now available on Hallmark Movies Now. Hallmark fans, will you be tuning in to see Jodie Sweetin and Sevier's fall into love movie The Heiress and the Handyman? In the picturesque town of Crestwood Falls, where the cobblestone streets whispered stories of generations past and the towering oak trees stood as silent witnesses to countless love tales, an unexpected romance began to unfold. Jodie Sweetin stars as Emma Davenport, a woman who had always known privilege. As the only daughter of the Davenport family, owners of the town's most prominent estate, Davenport Manor, Emma was groomed to be the perfect heiress. But despite the trappings of wealth, Emma had always yearned for a life beyond the gilded cage she found herself in. The weight of her family's expectations bore heavily on her, particularly as her father, Charles Davenport, had recently fallen ill. The responsibility of the estate and the family business loomed over her, a mantle she was expected to assume with grace and poise. However, Crestwood Falls was not just home to the wealthy. Sevier plays Jack Nolan, a skilled handyman known for his craftsmanship and integrity. Raised by his grandfather, a retired carpenter, Jack had learned the value of hard work and honesty from a young age. He had always admired the grandeur of Davenport Manor, not for its wealth, but for its history and the stories embedded in its walls. Jack had long been fascinated. One crisp autumn morning, fate intertwined the lives of these two souls. Emma, overwhelmed by the responsibilities thrust upon her, decided to escape the confines of her home. The manor's library, a sanctuary of sorts, had become suffocating, filled with financial ledgers and legal documents she didn't fully understand. Seeking solace, Emma wandered to the garden, a place her mother once lovingly tended. There, she noticed the garden shed, a structure that had long been neglected. Its roof was sagging, the paint peeling, and the door barely hung on its hinges. It was in desperate need of repair, much like the rest of her life. Driven by a newfound sense of purpose, Emma contacted the best handyman in town, Jack Nolan. When Jack arrived at Davenport Manor, he was taken aback by the beauty of the estate. It was a place he had only ever seen from afar. Meeting Emma, Jack expected her to be cold and distant, like most of the wealthy families he had worked for. Instead, he found her to be warm, albeit with a sadness in her eyes that intrigued him. As Jack began working on the garden shed, Emma found herself drawn to his easygoing nature and the way he seemed to understand the very soul of the things he repaired. She began spending more time in the garden, initially under the pretense of overseeing the work, but soon just to be near Jack. Their conversations, at first light and filled with small talk, gradually delved into deeper topics, dreams, fears, and the burdens they both carried. Jack shared stories of his grandfather, who had taught him that true value was found not in material wealth, but in the love and care one put into their work and relationships. For Emma, these conversations were a revelation. She had spent her life surrounded by people who only valued her for her family's name and wealth. Jack was different. He saw her for who she truly was, an individual, not just an heiress. He admired her curiosity, her intelligence, and her kindness, qualities that had often been overshadowed by her family's expectations. As the days turned into weeks, the garden shed began to take on a new life. Jack's careful restoration transformed it from a neglected structure into a cozy retreat. It was a reflection of what was happening between him and Emma. Their relationship blossomed like the flowers in the garden, slowly and beautifully. But as their connection deepened, so too did the challenges they faced. Emma's father, sensing her growing attachment to Jack, disapproved. Charles Davenport had always envisioned his daughter marrying someone of their social standing, someone who could further the family's influence and wealth. A handyman, in his eyes, was far beneath what Emma deserved. Charles confronted Emma, reminding her of her duties to the family and the legacy she was expected to uphold. Torn between love and duty, Emma felt the weight of her father's words. She knew that pursuing a relationship with Jack would mean defying her family's expectations and possibly losing everything she had known. But she also knew that a life without love, without Jack, would be a life half-lived. Jack, too, was aware of the social divide between them. He loved Emma, but he didn't want to be the cause of a rift in her family. He offered to step away, to leave Crestwood Falls and find work elsewhere, believing it was the right thing to do. However, before he could make his departure, Emma made a decision that surprised everyone, including herself. On the evening of the annual Davenport Manor Autumn Ball, a grand event that had been a tradition for generations, Emma took a bold step. Dressed in a stunning gown, she stood before the assembled guests, including her father, and made a heartfelt speech.